You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite. You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure. Smash that like button. We're local here in Baton Rouge. Let me just start with LSU. What do you think about the Tigers at 13?
Yeah, I'm fine with it. I thought it was about right. I think it's probably around where I would have had LSU, maybe a spot or two higher. But I mean, I think when you look at the level of talent that's returning and the systems that they're probably going to be getting back to, I was good with it. You know, I always kind of, if there's teams that are questionable for me, you know, I begin to look at the teams around them, because I think it's easy for people to just say, "Oh, why's Ole Miss at 25? It's ridiculous." Well, look at 22, 23, 24, and then look at the first three teams out. Are they comparable? And are there things that you like a little bit more about Ole Miss? So, you know, I'd kind of say the same thing there in reference to what I think about LSU and where they landed. And I think it would be – I think it's fair. I had no issue with it either way.
Cole, what if I asked you boom or bust potential among the SEC teams in this poll? Like, who has the biggest potential to rise, or who could completely bottom out based on where they start?
You know, I would probably say, I mean, listen, I'm not super high on Florida. So if you're asking me who could bottom out, Florida being there at 11. Obviously, the defense just didn't look organized last year. They still have some talent back there, but they don't have a lot of talent on the defensive line, especially in the middle of the D-line. I'm concerned about that. Transferring from Penn State, transferring to Auburn, neither one really wows me that much. Be good bodies to begin to compete, but just don't know if I look at that group and say, okay, that's going to be a dominant defense. The offensive line hadn't pushed anybody around in years. Your weapons are not as plentiful as they have been. You have a quarterback that hadn't really been a regular starter. So, you know, I would probably say Florida. And then on the other side of that, I mean, they got to play Alabama. They got to play Georgia. They got to play LSU. They got to play Florida State. It's going to be better. So the schedule doesn't really line up for me to believe that Florida is going to be able to have anywhere near as good of a year as they did last year. Granted, they were still 8-4 last year, which doesn't sound great, but they're in the SEC championship game. So I'm pretty confident in Bama and Georgia. I think A&M, with whoever the quarterback is going to be sustainable compared to what they were last year. I told you about kind of what I thought about LSU, and the Ole Miss offense is going to be too good to disappear. Plus, they're at 25. I mean, what are they going to go to 50? I mean, even if the defense is what it was last year, they're not going to be that bad.
Are you more of a believer in Georgia or A&M as a legitimate contender for the SEC and for the playoff?
Georgia, because I know about their quarterback situation, and I think the biggest difference is right now they know what their quarterback is. They know who their quarterback is, what he's capable of, what he likes, what he doesn't like, you know, what they can build around, what they can attach to what they want to do with him running the show. And that's massive compared to a Wake Forest transfer coming in a year ago and running the show for 3 months and then bailing and essentially, you know, stealing 3 months of first-team reps. Then all of a sudden you go to, you know, your uber athletic, high-profile recruit. He doesn't look like he's going to work out, so you got to run him out. And then next thing you know, you got to walk on in there at quarterback, and you're waiting for JT Daniels to get healthy. So you didn't really know what you were going to be able to be offensively at that point in time. Now they do. I have concerns about that offensive line, not from a talent perspective, but just continuity and chemistry. They hadn't played a ton of football together, and I saw them give up some things that easily should have been picked up in the spring game. Still a spring game, but Kirby threw a lot at them in the spring game, and they didn't react very well. So obviously a small litmus test of what we've seen, but that group's got to grow up in a hurry because Venables is going to throw everything he's got at him week one. Breessy's going to be one of the better defensive linemen they'll see all year, and that's a good front that Clemson brings to the table. But I think they're fine at receiver. They're loaded at tailback. Kendall Milton was my number one offensive breakout player in the SEC that I just put out, which I'd like to take the time to utilize your platform and apologize to all the Alabama fans for not putting 5 Bama guys on there because apparently they were really upset about that, really frustrated with that. So I would publicly like to issue that apology now because apparently everybody is upset, and but Bama is in full force today.
We're huge in Bama, by the way. Like, I mean, our online numbers in Tuscaloosa.
I've heard that a lot of folks over this way are just like, we got to listen to Muscana every day.
they're locked.
You got to say
they're locked in. Speaking of the state of Alabama, Auburn also receiving votes. Auburn and Michigan are the two that nationally most people are talking about as the biggest names that weren't included in the top 25. And it's worth the preamble here, Cole, that it's a preseason top 25. Everyone really is just guessing to a degree. But what do you think about Auburn not being included in the preseason top 25?
Some of this depends on how you vote. And I have had this debate with multiple people. Are you voting on who you believe are the best teams, or are you voting on this is where you think that team will be at the end of the season? Because obviously schedule is going to have a lot to do with that. Because we can look at Auburn's schedule. If they win 8 games, they're probably going to be better than a lot of 2-loss teams in college football. That's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they got to play at night at Penn State early in the season. They got A&M, they got LSU, they got Bama, they got Georgia. I mean, Auburn's sort of easier games are Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas. I mean, and I think all those 3 teams are going to be as good or better than they were last year. So it's just a monster of a schedule. I mean, why would you put them there? What are the selling points for Auburn? I love the linebacking core. I love the secondary. I love Coach Harsin and the new coaching staff. I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to get it right. But who's your takeover wide receiver? Tank Bigsby might be the best running back in college football. He's one of them. He's in the discussion. I had him as the best running back in the SEC heading into this season, but he doesn't have – they might have one NFL offensive lineman. We haven't seen the tight ends play, so we don't really know what they're going to be like because Gus never played those guys. So there's too many uncertainties to look at it and say, okay, yes, Auburn definitely needs to be in the top 25. Would I have told you you're crazy if you had Auburn at 23 or 24? No, not really, because again, I think the group of teams around there are probably going to have similar concerns, similar issues. There are going to be things about them that you look at and say, I don't know if I'm on board with that, or I don't really like that. And, that's fine. Like, do I think Coastal Carolina is a lot better than Auburn? No. I don't think Oklahoma State is. I actually think the Raging Cajuns might be. I don't know what they're calling themselves right now, so I apologize. I've been reprimanded so many times when I was doing Sunbelt for CSS that I don't want to get it wrong. So I usually just go Cajuns and Raging Cajuns, but I think they're probably a better football team than Auburn is right now. I'm being dead serious.
You could go Cajuns, Raging Cajuns. Here we go with the University of Louisiana at Lafayette because they insist on being called something they're not. We go with their proper name.
Okay. All I know is that the two of the things that I was always allowed to reference them as were Cajuns and Raging Cajuns, and I got a lot of respect for Billy Napier and his staff, so I'm going to go Cajuns or Raging Cajuns. But I mean, they're sitting there at 23. I would probably, when I did mine for ESPN, I think I had them in the top 15. I think they're that good of a football team. So, I'm not sold that Coastal's definitely better. Northwestern and Arizona State were the first 2 out receiving votes. I think Auburn's probably better than Northwestern. Arizona State, probably close. They're really good at quarterback this year. So, again, I think once you get past 20, maybe even like 16 or 17, I just don't think there's a lot of difference. Like Texas at 19, why? Tell me why.
But Cole, isn't that the same thing? That's, I guess, was my follow-up was you asked why would Auburn be in, and the point is reputation for the same reason that Texas is at 19. And a lot of times programs like that do get the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, and I like to see the voters get Coastal back in there because they've got most of what they had last year coming back, really good at quarterback. Likely at tight ends, a stud, really good defensive line and offensive line that are returning. I mentioned what I think about the Cajuns. Oak State was kind of a weird one for me. I kind of don't get that. I don't get Texas at 19. Like Indiana, I could sell you on. Iowa, I could sell you on. Maybe Washington, I'm not as high on them. Miami, yes, absolutely. I'm fine with USC being in the top 15. I think I have a chance to be really good this year. But going back to your original question, I think it depends on how you view teams. Like, do you view them as, okay, I think this is one of the best 5 teams in the country or best 10 teams in the country? Or do you view it as you've got a really easy schedule and a pretty good team, and this is where I think you're going to finish, so I'm going to go ahead and put you up there.
I think that's why A&M is 6th. I don't think people believe they have a legitimate top 5, top 6 team this year. But against that schedule, they very well could go 10-2 and be right there in the conversation for the college football playoff.
Like, people are telling me that they think Cincinnati is a better football team than LSU right now, or Southern California.
What do you
or
think?
Oregon. I don't.
Okay.
No, I don't. I don't think I'd have them ahead of Miami.
Okay.
So, I mean, I would have Iowa State ahead of Notre Dame, and I would not have Ohio State in my top 5. I'll tell you that.
Okay. He's on Twitter at Cole Cubelic, SEC Network. Before you get out of here, and time always appreciated. By the way, I guess we can go ahead and tell people that you're going to be the part of the show on Mondays during college football season. Didn't we decide 4 o'clock? Is that when we're going to do that?
Sure. Somewhere around there. Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, what the hell? Let's figure it out. Okay. But so we're excited to have Cole with us during this football season. Look around the conference as we're less than a full week into fall camps. Anything, anywhere, any storyline that seems to pop whenever you're just sort of paying attention casually, skimming off the top around the conference here as they're getting underway?
I think, and I don't think the things that have happened yet are enough to derail Georgia, but just distractions. It's one thing that I think any great coach would tell you. If they have a team that they believe can win a national title, you want to minimize distractions. Starting center goes out. One of your assistant coaches is not with the team. Now, I think they potentially upgraded with an on-field position in Will Muschamp, but still, guys talk about that. Guys are asked about that. Guys have to hear that. Those are early distractions in camp, and if those sort of continue to mount, I do believe it has a chance to become concerning. The other would be LeBron Ray. You hear the way Nick Saban describes it, it's kind of a severe growing injury. Like, that's one that doesn't just get better. It doesn't. You don't. That does not heal during the season. It's impossible for that to happen. Now, can you manage it and get it to where you can play and provide some snaps? Possibly, yes. But remember, last year he was banged up. DJ Dale was banged up. They had a couple D linemen that weren't really able to go. I think they have good depth, but it's young and inexperienced. Like, I think Tim Smith's the kid that could really help them this year. If Dale is healthy, he could be a good player. But that's a group last year that sort of got decimated by injury. And if they're off to that start already in fall camp, that's just kind of something to keep an eye on that could be a little bit concerning. And I think the Warren Erickson injury at Georgia, again, I think that's big because now you begin to shuffle guys around. So that means you don't get as many reps with the same 5. So you're not as comfortable heading into a game where that defense is going to show you everything. They're going to run every front. They're going to run every pressure. And that doesn't necessarily mean Clemson just wins, but they are going to have to be good with recognition in that game. I've already said it. I think the offensive line that plays the best wins that game. And that doesn't mean that either one has to dominate or knock people 11 yards down the field or be ripping helmets off. The group that probably does not embarrass themselves the most, I think wins that game because both of those defensive lines can absolutely take over that game.
What a caveat. Hey, do you know where you're going to be week 1 yet?
I think so, but I don't think we've announced it yet, so I'm gonna kind of wait and see on that one.
No, fair enough. Understood. Hey, man, always appreciate a couple of minutes. You'll follow him on Twitter at Cole Cubelic. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Matt.